Hey, Larry. Hello.
Hello.
We found a stand of Appalachian allspice berries that we're going to pick and dry and use for marinades and maybe some jam too, like some mint jelly or something. So once again in the woods, getting what we can get for free. Okay, now we've got a pawpaw tree. Giant tropical leaves. I mean, here's what you can see. Very large leaves. Smooth on the edges, because there are some trees, hickory trees can kind of look like this, but they have sawtooth edges. The leaves are alternating on the stem. In other words, they're not directly across from each other. And up there, I don't know if you can see that one little lonely fruit. There's one fruit up there that's not ripe, but this is the pawpaw tree, which we're getting real close to time on these being ripe. And definitely be out here gathering those. Okay, so now we found a ginko tree, a female tree, which is unusual because they don't plant the females very much anymore, because if you see, if you want to come in here, Larry, it's absolutely covered in tens of thousands of berries. I mean, they're just everywhere. They smell like dog vomit when they're ripe, so they tend to not plant the female trees anymore. But if you can get past the smell of the fruit once they're ripe and you get to the nut, you fry them up in a frying pan, they're just like pistachios, and they're actually really good for you. But these aren't ripe yet, which is why I'm this close, because they don't smell. But you can see there's literally probably 100,000 berries on this tree. So we may come back in a couple weeks when these are ready if we can stand the smell. So that's ginkgo. Okay, now we found a sassafras tree. This tree is most commonly known for root beer, but also these leaves, if you dry them, that's what they make filet from, which is used in gumbo. You just dry the leaves up and grind them up into a powder, and they make a thickening agent for gumbo. Every part of this plant smells like root beer. It's kind of crazy. But the neat thing is, the way to identify it is there's 3 different leaves on every tree, and they're called the glove, right there, the mitten, right there, and the fist, right there. So if you've actually got a sassafras tree, you should have each of these 3 leaves on the same tree. It's very unusual that you wouldn't find all 3. So again, you have the glove, the mitten, and the fist. And these you grind up and you use them for filet powder. The bark and roots are used to make root beer, and it actually just smells like root beer, just the leaves themselves. So it's a pretty neat little tree, and it's everywhere in eastern U.S. and probably up into parts of the Midwest too. So another cool tree. This is a plant that I'm sure everybody's seen. It's called plantain. Not like the banana variety of plantain, but this is a really common weed. It grows along roadsides in poor soil, low moisture, drought conditions, just like this one's growing on the edge of a road. It's really easy to identify because the ribs on the leaves run the length of the leaf instead of off to the sides. And there's a broadleaf and a thin leaf variety, but all of them get these little seed stalks on them. So I'm sure everybody's seen this. It's actually been called the most useful plant in North America. It's an anesthetic and an antiseptic. It takes the sting out of bee stings and mosquito stings. Also, if you rub it on your skin, it repels bugs, and it's edible. In a salad, it's very much like spinach. And it's actually really high in calcium and a lot of vitamin D. Quite a few minerals and vitamins in this little plant right here. It's absolutely everywhere, and it really is an annoying weed, to be honest with you. But it's got a lot of uses, and it's, again, one of these plants you'll just find growing everywhere. In fact, you've probably pulled it out of your lawn. But that's the plantain, the common plantain, and this is the broadleaf variety. There's another variety that's pretty much the same plant, but the leaves are long and slender. But again, it has the ribs on the back, just like this one, so it's pretty, and it gets the seed stalks. You can actually, although I can't imagine doing it, you can actually take these seeds, grind them up, and use them for flour to make bread. I can't imagine how many millions of these seeds you'd have to get to do that, because they're absolutely tiny. I think that would be more of an act of desperation than any kind of practical or interesting use. But that's the plantain. Right here we've got a nice group of edible plants. This one right here is an ostrich feather fern. It's way too far gone to eat. The leaves would be very bitter, but before the leaves uncurl, when they're still in the fiddlehead stage, they're very much like asparagus. You just fry them in some butter and garlic or whatever you want, and they're really, actually really good. I think they're better than asparagus, to be honest with you. And then just moving over here a couple inches, we've got a plant called jewelweed, and I don't really get the point of this one, to be honest with you. The flowers are edible, but you know, so what? So are a lot of flowers, but I think there's some other uses for that flower that I'm not familiar with, but I know that people do use it. Couldn't tell you exactly what for, but that's called jewelweed. Next to that we have polk. This time of year, all parts of this plant are poisonous, but when the young shoots come up, they're edible if you cook them in fat, like Crisco or bacon grease. You just fry them when they're fresh and tender and just out of the ground. And at that point, they're a pretty good vegetable, although I've never actually tried it. And then just over here is wood sorrel. Kind of looks like shamrocks. The leaves taste like lemongrass, and you can use those in salads or whatever. And then the tubers, the bulbs, are used in cooking as well. They also have a little bit of a lemony flavor, but also pretty close to ginger as well. So that's another one that people use a lot when they're foraging. This one here is staghorn sumac, and you can see the red berry clusters on there. That's how you tell it apart from poisonous sumac, is the red clusters. The poison sumac is white berries. You can use these berry clusters to make basically lemonade. You just stick them in cold water and let them sit and strain it out, and you've got basically lemonade. Also, you can put them through a food mill and use the powder from the berries in brown rice, and that's actually really good too. So sumac is another one that's everywhere that you can use for a couple different things. Okay, I'm sure everybody knows what goldenrod is, but this is sweet goldenrod. Really pretty much the same as any goldenrod, except the leaves here are kind of thin, they're not as broad. This is sweet goldenrod, and you can use these leaves to make a really nice tea, just like chamomile tea, really. So the thinner leaf like that, instead of the broad leaf, is called sweet goldenrod, and that you can use to make a real nice tea from. Now we found a kousa dogwood. A lot of people have these in their yards. There's two different kinds of dogwoods. The kind with the very long pointy petals is the kousa dogwood, and the kind with a notch out of the petal is the American dogwood. The American dogwood does not get fruit that you can eat, but the kousa dogwood does. And these are awfully close to ripe. And as strange looking as they are, I'm telling you, they're absolutely delicious. They got kind of a tough skin on them, but if you break that open, it's like an apricot inside, and it's the sweetest thing you've ever had. It's so full of sugar that it's almost gritty. I mean, it's like the sweetest apricot you've ever imagined. And they're very possibly in your yard. And they're really good. Okay, just for point of reference, this is the American dogwood. The tree really looks the same, but I was telling you about the berries that you can't eat. So if you have the hard little red berries like this, you have the American dogwood, and those, you don't want to eat those. Okay, right here is an autumn olive tree. This is a really excellent fruit. This tree is loaded with it. I wish I had a zoom on here so you could see. The branch here close to me doesn't have a lot on it, but here we go. So this is autumn olive, and you can identify the tree because the tops of the leaves are green, the underside is silvery, and it makes it really easy to identify. And you can't mistake the berries because they have little silver flecks all over the berries, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that on this camera or not. But the berries have little silver flecks on the skin, and my shadow's not helping here, but I don't know if you can see those, but these are excellent. They're best after a frost. They get much sweeter after the first frost, but right now they're fine too. You can put these through a food processor and just spread them on a wax paper and dry them, and you have basically fruit roll-ups. And they're really delicious. I can't really explain the flavor. There's really nothing else like it. But another really good one that you can find just out in the middle of nowhere if you look hard enough. So there we go.